If you want to learn Red Hat Linux and CentOS, it gets no easier than this. You get 4+ hours of HD video in depth showing you exactly how to learn Red Hat Linux and CentOS, all of which you can do for free with minimal modifications to your current system. Ermin and I teach this course together. Ermin will start you off explaining why you might want to learn Linux. Ermin will show you how to download and install Linux, how to create a virtual machine with VirtualBox, how to dual boot Red Hat, and then you'll get basic familiarization with the Linux graphical user interface, and then deep into the Linux command line until you've then spent over 4 hours in the video. This is a complete, free, comprehensive tutorial for Linux with Red Hat Linux and CentOS, created in 2015 for you to learn it for free right here. This is part of an even bigger course on Udemy that has 14 hours of HD video. You're getting the first 4 hours of the course right here on YouTube for free. If you have any questions, the only way to ask Ermin questions and to get answers is to take this course on Udemy, because this is my YouTube channel and I'm the marketing guy. So if you want to ask Ermin questions, you take the course on Udemy. You don't have to pay $199 to take the course. You go to my website, jerrybanfield.com/Udemy. I'm the marketing guy. As I said, I teach 30+ courses on Udemy, and one of them is this course you're looking at now. You can get a $25 coupon here. Once you click on that link, then you'll get this. You'll see a $25 coupon, and you just click the blue button to take this course. Before I pass you over to Ermin, there's a couple of quick things you'll want to know about this video. Since it's 4+ hours long, you'll want to be able to check various points and see what all the video contains. The easiest way to do that, this is on another video, and the video you're looking at will look similar. You scroll down and look at Show More. Once you're at Show More, you've got the link to my website along with a direct link to the course on Udemy. And then what you've got below, you have a timeline with points you can click on. You can click on any of the points on the timeline on this video to skip ahead to a certain section if you want to. Or if you didn't get something you want to look back, you can skip back to it. This is a long video, so if you want to save this for later, you can add it to a playlist, you can share it, or if you like it, it'll be added to your liked videos and you can go back and find it that way. Thank you very much for watching this video with Ermin and I. Ermin will now explain to you why Linux is worth learning.
Hello everybody. Today I wanted to give a bit of an addition. Today I wanted to create an addition to the introduction, and I do believe that this will be of great use to you. Even though there's nothing technical in this tutorial, there is a bit of a motivation embedded into it. Basically, here I wanted to deal with the subject, why should anybody learn how to use Linux, or why should anybody learn how to use Red Hat or get their certification or anything of a kind? Well, here's why. You might have this idea that most of the world runs either on Windows or on Mac, but that is simply not the case. If you just take a look at Google, at Facebook, at Twitter, at eBay, at PayPal, all these servers, all these companies, they pretty much completely run on Linux. I'm not sure about eBay, but like 99% sure that it runs on Linux as well. All of these companies, they are the biggest companies, one of the biggest companies on the planet, and they all run on Linux. All of their machines are Linux, all of their servers are running Linux. And if you want to get a job at any of those companies as a technical person or anything of a kind, you will need to know a great deal about Linux, because pretty much the entire Google development team, the entire Google development platform is actually on a Linux machines, all of it. Even though the employees can bring their own computers into the company that can have any operating system installed on them, The main OS which they use as a platform for development is actually Linux. They use a version of Ubuntu that they've adapted to their own needs. Anyway, uh, as I said, if you take a look at Facebook as well, all of their servers from beginning till this day on today, they run on Linux. But okay, that might still not be enough for you. You might still think, oh well, there is bound to be something else. There's bound to be something more other than those few companies. Well, let me tell you something. All of your Android phones that you have, that you carry in your pockets, or that you see on television or whatever, they all run on Linux as well. Your smart TVs run on Linux. I don't know what else do you need, basically. Even though the desktop computers, till this day on today, most of the desktop computers do run on Windows, and the market share is pretty low there for Linux. That is nothing. Just imagine all the Android phones they run on Linux, all the major companies run on Linux, pretty much a large, I mean, not all, but certainly a very large portion of servers, like 90% of them in the world, run on Linux based systems. Your routers, pretty much all routers, they run on Linux as well, be it your home router or your Cisco router, or they don't necessarily need to run directly on Linux, but they run on a derivative of a Linux. Cisco routers, Juniper routers, the commands on the Juniper router are pretty much the same as within a Linux terminal. The environment is very similar. That's fantastic for me and for a lot of people out there. And even the desktop is slowly being taken over by Linux, more so in the recent years than in the past. Why so? Well, first of all, it's completely free. Most of it anyway. If you want to, in certain cases, only if you want support, you pay. Only if you want like professional support or something of a kind, then you pay for that support. You subscribe or something of a kind. But the operating system in and of itself is free. You just go onto the net, download it, and run it. That's one of the reasons. The second reason is, although this might not be the case to the greatest of extents with Windows 8.1, uh, Windows is, well, not Windows, but sorry, Linux is generally far more secure than any Windows or Mac based operating system. Why? Well, one of the main reasons, I suppose, is the fact that it's less used for desktop, so therefore there's less interest to develop viruses and something of a kind. However, that is not the only case for it. I mean, okay, yeah, true. There are pretty much no viruses out there for Linux-based operating system. There are few antivirus systems for it, but they're generally not used primarily because the system itself is very secure. So even if you were to download a virus as a regular user from the net or something of a kind, to install anything, you require root privileges. So even though it's sitting there on your computer, it won't be able to do anything. Security is a major part of Linux. You won't have any problems with viruses. Your system will be very secure, provided, of course, that you at least configure it properly to a good extent. However, desktop users, people who just browse, who use a browser mainly, nothing else pretty much, actually, Linux would be perfect for them, but they tend to use Windows primarily because they are used to it. In Linux, you never have to see the terminal if you do not want to. I use the terminal. People in the business use the terminals always. Even desktop users use the terminals primarily because you can get things done a lot faster, and the true power rests there in the blessed terminal. However, if you don't want to, as a desktop user, you will never have to use it. It will not be a requirement. But I just wanted to make this very brief video just to show everybody and explain that most of the world out there is actually, most of the appliances, most of the devices out there in the world, network devices, computers, servers, etc. Supercomputers are run on Linux. Pretty much all the supercomputers are run on Linux-based operating systems or on the Linux that we know and use in our daily lives today. Plus, as I said, as I have mentioned previously, Windows and Mac do cost money to buy, while you can do pretty much everything and more with Linux-based operating systems without paying a cent. I mean, completely free. Although you will encounter some problems inevitably with applications. For example, Adobe Suite, Adobe Photoshop, or something of a kind will generally not work on Linux, even with compatibility layer wine. You're going to have problems and it's not going to work there. So in the application section for desktop, it's still lacking a little bit. Also in sense of game for gamers. Okay, so Linux is definitely not for gamers. Uh, I mean, if you're an average gamer who doesn't actually require super performance, like to set everything to max out settings on graphics and stuff like that, you'll be able to run most of the games without any problems on medium settings or something like that. With a compatibility layer, you won't need to download anything specific for Linux. You can just download a Windows game and run it on Linux with Wine without bigger problems. Most of the things will run. Sometimes you will encounter some problems, but most of the time it will run. So those are the two problems that Linux encounters. But I just wanted to bring this show this picture to you, as I have already stated, that most of the world, most of the businesses, most of the places where you can get a job, where you can work, they actually run on Linux-based operating systems, banks especially. Maybe not the bank's computers like the one that you see when you walk to the reception, but the infrastructure of the bank, their servers, and the stock market especially. So the stock market in New York, the pretty much all of the servers there are on a Linux system. And that is what I want to show you, that most of the world runs on Linux, that is where you can find jobs. I'm not saying that you cannot find jobs with Microsoft or with Windows or something of a kind, but you are far more likely to find something with Linux, even though it's a free operating system, because companies do use it. They do need people to actually operate it and to do stuff with it. If you possess that knowledge, you definitely have a better opportunity, a better chance out there to be employed, to find work, and to make an income. Aside from that, Linux is highly customizable. There is pretty much nothing that you cannot do, primarily because it's open source and you get a variety of desktop versions for it. So let's say you want to download Fedora, which is an open source Red Hat free distribution for desktop users. Basically, you can get like a GNOME desktop, or you can get LXD desktop, or you can get a KDE desktop. We will get into all of this once we get to the GUI part and all of that. But what I wanted to say is that when you're using Windows or Mac, you're pretty much stuck with one desktop without extensive customization. While on the other hand, with Linux, you can just download the spin that you want. So if you want a KDE spin of Fedora, you just download that one. If you want GNOME spin of Fedora, you just download that one. And you get a completely different desktop. Uh, they differ to a very, very large extent. The user interfaces are completely different, but the terminals are always the same. The terminal commands are always the same. That is why when you're doing something via the terminal, it is a universal way of doing things. It does not vary from one distribution to another to a significant extent. It's pretty much the same everywhere. In any case, if you still have some doubts, feel free to post them in the discussion section. But there is one more thing that I wanted to address in this tutorial, and that is the format for your questions in the discussion section. Now, it would be good if you encounter any errors or any problems during this course while you follow it, and you're bound to encounter some problems. That's normal. It happens to everybody. You're unable to do something. You've installed it on one system. The drivers are not. You don't have the drivers for that. Uh, some problems. Doesn't matter what it is. If you're posting it in the discussion, just say from which lecture it is. Copy the error message. post it there, and then explain your problem. Also, explain what you have tried to do and the procedure that you have used in order to actually attempt to do that. I do not say this to make my job easier. I just say this to, even though I check the discussions on Udemy on daily basis, and I try to answer everybody as fast as I possibly can. Usually within 12 hours, usually everybody gets a response within 12 hours or less. Uh, but when I don't have all the information, I basically have to write an answer. Could you please provide an error message or something like that? And then that adds a lot more time, and you need to read it, and then you need to find the error message again, and then you need to post it, and then you need to wait for me to check it out again. Basically, you can save yourselves a lot of time by just posting the error message, by listing the procedure that you have done, and perhaps explaining the setup, but most importantly of all, specifying which lecture were you following, and where did you encounter the problems. So if you just post those things, I will be able to help you a lot better in a far shorter time frame, so to say. Anyway, also in the discussions, do not feel free to ask me about anything related to Linux. There is nothing that is outside of the scope. You can ask pretty much anything. I will be more than happy to pretty much provide any information that I can on pretty much any subject that is related to Linux, either directly or indirectly. In any case, that would be all for now. In the next tutorial, we will get into the stuff. We will actually start doing things. We will get technical and approach without fear. Don't let that stop you or deter you or something of a kind. If you encounter difficulties in the beginning, it's okay. We've all encountered them. It was difficult for pretty much everybody. If you just stick with it for a little while, you will see it gets a lot easier after a certain period of time. I remember when I started using it for the first 6 months up to a year, I was completely lost, like errors at every corner. But after half a year or something like that of using Linux, of playing around with it on my own without any courses, I pretty much I started feeling comfortable with it, no problems. You will do this in a far shorter amount of time because I will introduce you to it step by step, and you will see you will become very comfortable with Linux after you have finished this course. Anyway, I'll see you in the next tutorial.
Thank you very much for watching the beginning of this tutorial. You just completed the first lecture where there are lots more. You've got so much more to learn, and I hope you're motivated to get learning with Linux by now. That's the main point of the course, is to get you motivated and inspired to learn Linux. Once you have completed this, now you will get to see how to install Linux with minimal modifications to your operating system. You'll then get the graphical user interface and deeper into the command line. That will take you through 4+ hours of this video. If you already know, you've already watched enough to know whether you like listening to Ermin especially, if you know you like that, then go for that Udemy course. Go straight into it. That way you can have the course completed, and if after 4 hours you don't want to stop, you can keep going and going and going in the course there. You can grab the coupon anytime on my website. I'll put up at jerrybanfield.com/Udemy at the end of every lecture, so that way you know when you've just completed a lecture, and then when it drops off, you'll see that you've started a new lecture. And anytime you can save at where you're at on the video and come back and watch this later. If you want to ask Ermin questions, you can count on an answer to every single question you ask in the course on Udemy. Thank you very much for watching this, and you won't see me again until the very end of the video.
Welcome everybody to this tutorial. Today I am going to go ahead and show you how to actually install a virtualizer on your Windows 8.1 machine. The procedure is pretty much the same for any other Windows machine as well, so this applies universally on pretty much all Windows systems out there. Anyway, this will be a bit weird because I am installing a virtualizer on a virtual machine, because as you can see, I have, let me just minimize this. I have Windows virtual machine running within Linux, and in behind I have my Red Hat website opened. There we will download Red Hat in the follow-up tutorial, but for the time being I just want to show that this is a virtual machine, and you can see it runs just fine. You have this gray menu bar in the top, in the upper part of your screen, but I mean that's easily fixable. Switch to full screen. Yep, there we go. Switch, there we go. So it seems as though I really do have a Windows machine, but in fact this is a virtual machine, and for all intents and purposes this pretty much works. So if I go down, I have these things here. I have my menu back up, but I don't need my menu for the time being. I just want to show you how you can do pretty much the same thing for Red Hat as I have done for Windows 8.1. Now there are other methods of virtualization. Uh, there are other approaches to do this. I will show three if I'm not mistaken, or a couple, don't hold my word to it, where you will be able to do different things. For example, you will be able to virtualize your Red Hat machine within a Windows environment. You will be able to perform a dual boot of your Windows and Red Hat as well, or any other Linux distro. And the third option, you will be able to have your main machine to be a Linux-based operating system, preferably Red Hat, but it can be pretty much anything else. And you will install a virtualizer on that particular machine, from where you will have access to your Windows 8 Windows machine should you need it. Now there are different approaches to this last part. You can have a simple virtualizer like VirtualBox and pretty much run, but I think that's 50% at capacity. If you install a Xen virtualizer, you have 95% native performance, which is fantastic, which means that you really can play games and use Photoshop or do anything of a kind, perform such tasks. So you can literally run a game, a video game. I don't know, let's say Call of Duty or something like that, with with 95% native performance on Xen virtual machine of Windows, and it's gonna work just fine, provided of course that you have configured everything properly on your main Linux machine. Anyway, let's take this first approach. And before I do, let me just mention it briefly. Any one of these approaches that you take, you will be able to follow through the tutorial. So just take a look. I will show three for different cases. Any one you choose to set up, any of the three that you actually choose and set up, it will be fine. You'll be able to follow through the entire tutorial without any problems of whatsoever. So there, you won't be hindered whichever one you choose. I just set it for personal preferences, whichever way people want it to be. Anyway, let's just jump into Windows now. I'm here. I'm gonna open up a default web browser, which is basically Explorer here. It says I've written in VirtualBox 32-bit. Be careful to actually download a proper one, although you can't really make a mistake, because if you search the web for VirtualBox 32-bit, you're going to be thrown onto a Oracle website. It won't be VirtualBox official website, but it will be like Oracle, its maintainer and creator, and you can download it from there, no problem. So if you go to the Oracle website, here, let me just show you. I'm gonna do a web search, and pretty much the second one that pops, that will be a place where you can go and download it. There we go. So once again, I found myself on that website. As you can see, you have VirtualBox for numerous operating systems down there. Most of them are Linux platforms. Different Linux platforms require different modifications in order for this virtualizer to be able to run. So you got here, it says platform Windows 32-bit, 64-bit, no problems. I just click on this and it's gonna start to download. As you can see at the bottom of my screen, it says VirtualBox 4326 something win.exe download complete. So I'm not going to be downloading it during this tutorial, but you just click on this, click on the selected part, and your download will begin no matter which browser you are using. It took me about maybe 4 or 5 minutes to download it. I figured I wouldn't do that during the tutorial itself. So let's just go ahead and minimize this, please. Yes. No. The Explorer is always wonderful. I really should install Firefox or something like that, but it's a virtual machine, so I don't give it that much attention. Anyway, go ahead, visit your downloads folder. It's, let's see, where is it? There we go. So VirtualBox 4.3, there we go. Nope, which is the latest version? Yep, the lower one. Also, yeah, make it your business to actually have always the latest versions of the software. That can save you so much trouble. I mean, I can't even begin to explain it. So it's an exe file. Just start up the wizard. No big deal. And okay, so the wizard has been started. It says Oracle VMbox 4.3.26 setup, welcome, etc. Just click next. That's no big deal there. So you have some sort of a custom, pretty much like any other installation. If you want to play around with it, feel free, but I'm not. I'm just gonna use a default install here. So create, register. Okay, no problems. Next. Installing virtual network config. Yep. Okay. So if you're performing a download of some sort while you're installing VirtualBox, make sure that you can continue them, or that you at least don't care for them, primarily because your network interfaces are going to be reset. So just type in click yes, install, and okay, you need a permission there. Excellent. So the installation process is en route. This is not going to take that long of a time, and in that period of time I'll see if I can actually minimize Windows Explorer. Can I? Yes, I can, through a very inefficient method, but oh well. Anyway, the installation procedure is going on, and even though I'm running this on a virtual machine, there is no difference. No, I don't want you to start it. There is no difference. You will be doing exactly the same steps on your physical Windows machine if you are a Windows user. Straight away, I will of course demonstrate how to perform this process on Linux as well, so don't worry about it. If you have already installed a Linux version or using a Linux machine, I will show you how to do it. So basically just go ahead and click on Oracle VirtualBox. Should run anytime, and excellent. This is your Oracle VirtualBox interface. There is, from this point on, there pretty much are no differences between virtual machines, between Linux and Windows. Pretty much the procedures are the same. There isn't anything special that you're going to do here that you're not going to do there. Basically, just download an ISO file from the net and then install it. I will perform the installation procedure in the next tutorial and explain a few features to which you should really pay attention here. Actually, I might just mention a few of them. So let me just go ahead and do this, because I already have a few virtual machines installed here. So what I've noticed over the course of time is that people get confused with certain things. So look, I have Windows 8.1. It says running. I select it, I right click it, I say settings, and starting. Yep, there we go. So there are a few things here which you should be aware. For example, on network, you need to say that it's a bridged adapter. So remember, select bridged adapter, and then under the name, you select the name of the interface, of the network interface that your physical machine is using. I cannot tell you which interface that is, because I don't know, machines use different interfaces from one machine to the other, but I can definitely show you where you can find out. You just go back to your, I'm just going to go back to my machine, open up your, okay, I'm not going to be able to show you here, but hold on, come on, please, no, yes, thank you, search, control panel. Open it up. So network and internet. Adapters. I need adapters. Network sharing center.